Taiho was fixing a water pump when he heard the sound. It was not a crash. It was not an explosion. It was something else. A deep hum that made his teeth shake and his chest feel tight. He dropped his tools and ran outside. The whole colony was looking up. 200 people stood in the red dust of Harn 7, watching the old cargo ship come down. The Xiangrayong had been in orbit for 60 years. It was the ship that brought their grandparents to this world. Now it was falling. But it was not falling like a rock falls. It was falling like a leaf falls, slow, controlled, almost gentle. Taiho watched as the ship turned in the air. Its nose pointed down toward the eastern ridge. The engines were not firing. The lights were dark. The ship was dead. And yet it was landing. The Xiangrayong touched the ground with a sound like a giant taking a breath. The nose buried itself in the red soil. The tail pointed up at the sky like a finger pointing at the stars. And then everything was quiet. Nobody moved for a long time. Taiho was the first to speak. He was a mechanic. He had spent his whole life fixing things that other people said could not be fixed. He looked at the ship and he felt something strange. Not fear, not confusion. Something else. Something that felt like a door opening in his mind. "I need to go there," he said. The colony elder, Byung-ho, put a hand on his shoulder. The old man was 67 years old. He had been a young boy when the colony ship landed. He remembered the early days when everything was hard and many people died. "Wait," Byung-ho said. "We do not know what happened. It could be dangerous." But Taiho was already walking. The eastern ridge was 3 kilometers from the colony. Taiho walked the whole way. Behind him, he could hear others following. By the time he reached the ship, half the colony was there. The Xiangrayong was buried deep. 12 meters of the ship were under the ground. The metal was cold to the touch. Taiho put his hand on the hull and felt nothing. No vibration. No heat. The ship was truly dead. But something was wrong. Taiho walked around the ship 3 times. He checked every panel he could reach. He looked at every sensor. And then he found it. There was a small screen on the side of the ship. It was the backup navigation display. It should have been dark like everything else. But it was not dark. It was glowing with a soft blue light. Taiho cleaned the dust from the screen with his sleeve. He looked at what it showed, and he felt his heart stop. The navigation system was still running. It was pointing somewhere, but it was not pointing up at the stars. It was pointing down, into the ground. He called for Yuna. Yuna was the colony's only engineer. She was 34 years old, with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had lost her family to the plague 10 years ago. Since then, she had become quiet. She spoke only when she had something important to say. She looked at the screen for a long time. Then she shook her head. "It is a glitch," she said. "The system is damaged. Navigation does not point down." "But it is pointing down," Taiho said. "Then it is wrong." Taiho looked at the screen again. The arrow was steady. It did not shake or flicker. It pointed straight down, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "What if it is not wrong?" he asked. Yuna looked at him. There was something in her eyes. Something that might have been curiosity, or might have been fear. "Then something is down there," she said. "Something the ship wanted us to find." That night, the colony had a meeting. Byung-ho stood before everyone and spoke about caution. He spoke about the early days when people died because they made quick decisions. He spoke about the importance of waiting and watching and being careful. "We do not know what made the ship fall," he said. "We do not know why the navigation is behaving strangely. We should study it first. We should wait." Most people nodded. They trusted Byung-ho. He had kept them alive for many years. But Tai-ho did not nod. After the meeting, he went back to his small house. He could not sleep. He lay in his bed and stared at the ceiling and thought about the arrow pointing down. What could be under the ground? This planet was supposed to be empty. When the colonists arrived 60 years ago, there was nothing here. No life, no buildings, no signs that anyone had ever been here before. But the ship knew something. The ship had landed itself. The ship was pointing down. In the morning, Tai-ho made a decision. He gathered his tools. He took a shovel and a light and some food. He walked back to the ship while the colony was still waking up. The ground near the ship's nose was soft. Red dust and small rocks. Easy to dig. Tai-ho started digging. The sun rose higher. Tai-ho kept digging. People came to watch. Some of them told him to stop. Some of them called him crazy. Byung-ho came and stood with his arms crossed, his old face full of worry. "You are wasting your time," the elder said. "There is nothing down there." Tai-ho did not answer. He kept digging. 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters. His arms burned. His back ached. Sweat ran down his face and mixed with the red dust until he looked like he was made of clay. But he did not stop. And then his shovel hit something. The sound was different. Not the soft thud of dirt. Not the crack of rock. It was a ring of metal hitting metal. Tai-ho stopped. He got down on his knees. He brushed the dirt away with his hands. There was something under the ground. It was metal, smooth and dark gray, not like the metal of the Xiangrial. This was something else, something older, something that should not be there. Tai-ho looked up at the people watching him. He looked at Byung-ho. He looked at Yuna, who had come to see what was happening. "There is something here," he said. His voice was shaking. "There is something under the ground." Nobody spoke. The wind blew across the ridge. The Jiangryong stood silent behind them, its navigation system still pointing down, pointing at whatever Tai-ho had just found. The old ship had not crashed. It had not died. It had come home. And now it was showing them where to look. Tai-ho picked up his shovel and started digging again. This time, he was not alone. One by one, others came to help. They did not know what they were looking for. They did not know what they would find. But they knew one thing. The ground held a secret, and they were going to dig until they found it. The hole grew wider and deeper. What started as one man with a shovel became 20 people working in shifts. They built wooden supports to keep the walls from falling. They rigged lights so they could work through the night. The whole colony was talking about what Tai-ho had found. The metal structure went deep, very deep. As they dug, more of it appeared. It was not just a piece of metal. It was a wall. A massive wall made of material that none of them recognized. The surface was smooth like glass but strong like steel. When they tried to cut it with their tools, the tools broke. On the third day, they found the door dot. It was 15 meters wide. Tai-ho stood before it and felt very small. The door was covered in markings, lines and curves and symbols that seemed to move when he looked at them from the corner of his eye. He reached out his hand and touched the surface. It was warm. Yuna came down into the hole with her equipment. She spent hours studying the door and the markings. She took pictures. She made notes. And then she called for Dongwu. Dongwu was the colony's historian. He was 45 years old with gray hair and glasses that were always dirty. He had spent his whole life studying old books and records. He believed that humanity's history was not complete. He believed that there were secrets that had been forgotten. When Dongwu saw the markings on the door, he dropped his notebook. "This is impossible," he said. "What is it?" Tai-ho asked. Dongwu's hands were shaking as he traced the symbols with his finger. "These are not alien markings," he said. "These are human, Proto-Korean, a language that existed on Earth thousands of years before the first space colonies. Thousands of years before we even had writing." Taiho felt cold. How can that be? This planet was empty when we arrived. "I do not know," Dongwu said, "but I know what I am seeing. This language is older than any human history I have ever studied. And it is here, under the ground of a planet we thought was untouched." News of the discovery spread fast. The colony was divided. Some people were excited. They wanted to open the door and see what was inside. Others were afraid. They said that some things should stay buried. They said that opening the door would bring trouble. Byung called another meeting. "We must seal this place," the elder said. "We do not understand what we have found. It could be dangerous. It could be a tomb or a prison or something worse. We should cover it up and forget about it." Some people agreed. But Taiho stood up. "We cannot forget about this," he said. "The ship brought us here. The ship pointed us to this place. Whatever is down there, it was meant to be found. By us. Now." The argument went on for hours. In the end, nothing was decided. The colony was split in half. That night, Byung-ho sent Jisoo to guard the site. Jisoo was 29 years old. She had been a soldier in the Galactic Union forces. Before returning to Harran 7, she carried scars on her body and in her mind. She did not talk about what she had seen during her service. She did not talk much at all. Jisoo sat by the door through the night. She watched. She listened. And she dreamed. In her dream, she heard voices. They came from below the door. They were soft and gentle, like a mother singing to a child. She could not understand the words, but she felt them. They called to her. They told her that she was expected. They told her to come home. She woke up with tears on her face. In the morning, Jisoo found Taiho. "Something is alive down there," she said. Taiho nodded. He had felt it too. Every time he touched the door, he felt something. A presence. A waiting. "We need to open it," he said. "How?" "Nothing can cut through that metal." Taiho thought for a long time. He remembered how the door had felt warm under his hand. He remembered how the navigation system had pointed down. He remembered how the ship had landed itself, as if it knew exactly where to go. "Maybe we do not need to cut it," he said. "Maybe it will open for us." He went back to the door. Yuna and Jisoo followed him. Dongwu came too, his notebook full of translations. A small crowd gathered at the edge of the hole, watching from above. Taiho stood before the door. He took a deep breath. He put both hands on the surface. Nothing happened. He waited. He pressed harder. Still nothing. "It is not working," Yuna said, but Taiho did not give up. He closed his eyes. He stopped thinking about opening the door. He stopped thinking about what might be inside. He thought about nothing. He just stood there with his hands on the warm metal and let his mind go quiet. And then he felt it. A pulse. Like a heartbeat. Coming from inside the door. The pulse matched his own heart. Beat for beat. Rhythm for rhythm. And then the door began to hum. The markings on the surface started to glow. Blue light traced the lines and curves until the whole door was shining. The ground shook. Dust fell from the walls of the hole. People screamed and ran back, but Taiho did not move. He kept his hands on the door. He felt the pulse grow stronger. The hum grew louder. And then, with a sound like a giant waking from sleep, the door began to open. It did not swing open like a normal door. It did not slide to the side. It dissolved. The metal turned to light and then to nothing. Where there had been a solid wall, there was now an opening. Behind the opening was a staircase it went down into darkness. Old dust covered the steps. The air that came up smelled ancient. Not bad, just old. Like a room that had been closed for a very long time. Taiho stepped back. His hands were shaking. He looked at Yuna and Jisoo. They looked at him. "It recognized you," Yuna said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "The door recognized you. How is that possible?" Taiho asked. "I was born here. My parents were born on the colony ship. We have no connection to this place." Dongwu came closer. His eyes were wide behind his dirty glasses. "Maybe you do," he said. "Maybe the connection is older than you know. Older than any of us know." They stood at the edge of the staircase, looking down into the darkness. Then, one by one, lights began to turn on below. Small blue lights, just like the door. They traced a path down the stairs and into whatever waited at the bottom. Something was waking up. Something that had been sleeping for a very, very long time. Byung-ho pushed through the crowd. He saw the open door. He saw the lights. His old face went pale. "Close it," he said. "You must close it now." But Taiho shook his head. "I do not think it can be closed," he said. "And I do not think we should try. Whatever is down there, it has been waiting for us. Maybe for thousands of years. Maybe longer. We cannot walk away now." Jisoo stepped forward. She looked down the staircase. The lights seemed to grow brighter when she approached, as if they were happy to see her. "He is right," she said. "I have dreamed of this place. I have heard voices calling me. I did not understand before, but now I think I do. We were meant to come here. All of us." Yuna picked up her equipment. "Then let us go," she said. "Let us find out what is down there." Taiho took a light and started down the stairs. Yuna and Jisoo followed. Donghu came last, still writing in his notebook behind him. The colony watched them go. Byung-ho stood at the edge of the hole with his fists clenched. He wanted to stop them. He wanted to seal the door and forget everything. But he knew it was too late. The door was open. The lights were on. And something below was waiting. Whatever happened next would change everything. Yoonji grew stronger each day. She ate the simple food of the colony and drank their water and slowly became part of their world. But she was not like them. When she spoke, people stopped to listen. When she walked, people watched. She carried 40,000 years of history in her eyes. The colony had changed since the discovery. People who had wanted to seal the door now wanted to explore. People who had been afraid were now curious. Byung-ho still worried, but even he spent hours listening to Yoonji's stories, and she had many stories to tell. She told them about the old civilization, about cities that floated in the clouds of gas giants, about ships that could cross the galaxy in days, about machines that could build anything from nothing, about a time when humanity was the greatest power in the universe. "We made mistakes," Yoonji said one evening as they all sat around a fire. "We were proud. We thought we were gods. When the fall came, it came because of our pride. We fought among ourselves. We destroyed what we had built. And in the end, we lost everything. Why did you create the other species?" Taiho asked. "Because we were lonely," Yoonji said. "And because we wanted to fill the universe with life. We took our own DNA and changed it. We made beings who could live in places we could not. We gave them intelligence and curiosity and hope. We sent them to the stars and watched them grow." "But they forgot us," Jisoo said. "Yes, when the fall came, we lost contact with them. They were young. They did not have our records or our history. They grew up alone, thinking they had always been alone. They forgot that they came from us." Yuna had spent the weeks studying the machines in the underground structure. She had learned much, but there was still more she did not understand. "This place," she said. "It is not just a hiding place. It is a ship." Yunji nodded. "Yes, a seed ship. One of many that we sent to the galaxy before the fall. Each one carried technology and knowledge and guardians. They were meant to help humanity rebuild after the disaster. But most of them were lost or destroyed. Only a few remain. Can it still fly?" Taiho asked. "Yes, when the time is right." That night, Dongwu came running from the communications room. His face was pale and his hands were shaking. "Ships," he said. "There are ships coming. From the Galactic Union." Everyone went quiet. The colony had been forgotten by the Union for 50 years. No ships had come to Haran 7 in 3 generations. Why would they come now? "They detected the seed ship's activation," Unji said. "I knew this would happen. When the door opened, it sent a signal. A very old signal on a very old frequency. Some of the children must still be listening." 3 days later, the ships arrived. There were 3 of them. Big ships with weapons and shields and symbols of the Galactic Union on their hulls. They landed in the desert outside the colony. And then the visitors came. They were Vethani. The Vethani were one of the most powerful species in the Union. They were tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. They moved with grace and spoke with authority. For centuries, they had looked down on humans as primitive newcomers. They sat at the head of the Union Council and made decisions that affected 1,000 worlds. Their ambassador walked into the colony with guards on either side. His name was Torvak. He wore fine clothes and carried himself like a king. "We detected an unusual signal from this world," Torvak said. "Our sensors show technology that does not match any known human capability. By Union law, unknown technology must be turned over to the Council for study." Byung-ho stepped forward. His old hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "We are a small colony," he said. "We have found something in the ground. We do not fully understand it yet. Perhaps we can discuss." "There is nothing to discuss," Torvak interrupted. "You will show us what you have found. Then you will leave this place. The technology will belong to the Union." Taiho felt anger rise in his chest. But before he could speak, Yunji stepped forward. She had been standing in the back of the crowd. She was wearing simple clothes like the colonists. She looked like just another human. But when she moved, something changed in the air. Torvak looked at her with contempt. "Who are you?" Yunji did not answer in Korean. She did not answer in Union Standard language. She opened her mouth and spoke in a tongue that no one had heard in 40,000 years. The sounds were strange, deep and musical and very, very old. But as she spoke, something happened to the Vethani. Torvak's face changed. His large black eyes went wide. His gray skin became pale. His body began to shake. The guards behind him dropped their weapons and fell to their knees. Yunji kept speaking. Her voice was soft, but it filled the whole colony. It reached into the ears of the Vethani and touched something deep inside them. Something they had forgotten. Something written in their DNA. When she finished speaking, there were tears running down Torvak's face. "You understand," Yunji said, now in Union Standard. "Some part of you remembers. Some part of you knows who you are and where you came from." Torvak's voice was weak. "What? What was that language?" "The mother tongue," Yunji said. "The first language. The language we used when we made you 40,000 years ago. You were never meant to forget. But you did. You all did." She stepped closer to Torvak. She looked into his eyes with kindness and sadness. "I am Yunji," she said. "I am a guardian of the old ones, a keeper of memory, and I have been waiting 2,000 years to tell you the truth. You are not superior to humans. You are not older than humans. You are human. Changed and adapted and made new, but human still. We made you from our own blood. You are our children." Torvik shook his head. "This is impossible. Our history, your history begins 40,000 years ago in a laboratory on a world that no longer exists. Your scientists studied human DNA and wondered why parts of it matched your own. Now, you know why. Because you came from us. All of you came from us." The Vethany guards were crying. They did not know why. Their bodies remembered what their minds had forgotten. The words Yunji spoke had awakened something ancient inside them. Torvik looked at his hands. He looked at the humans around him. He looked at Yunji. "If this is true," he said slowly, "then everything we believed is wrong. Our place in the Union, our authority, our history, everything." "Yes," Yunji said, "everything you believed is wrong. But that is not a tragedy. It is an opportunity. For too long, the children have been fighting. For too long, you have looked at each other as strangers. But you are not strangers. You are family. And it is time for the family to come together again." Torvik was quiet for a long time. Then, slowly, he knelt before Yunji. His guards were already kneeling. Now their ambassador joined them. "What would you have us do?" Torvik asked. Yunji smiled. She reached down and lifted Torvik to his feet. "Go back to the Union," she said. "Tell them what you have learned. Tell them the truth. Some will believe. Some will not. Some will be angry. But the truth cannot be hidden forever. It is time for the children to remember who they are." Torvik nodded. He looked like a man who had woken from a long sleep. "I will do as you ask," he said. "I will tell them." He turned to leave. Then he stopped and looked back. "The Union may not accept this easily," he said. "There are those who will fear the truth. They may try to destroy it." "I know," Yunji said. "But the truth has a way of surviving. And so do we. We have survived for 40,000 years. We will survive whatever comes next." Torvik bowed deeply. Then he and his guards walked back to their ships and flew away into the sky. The colonists stood in silence, watching them go. Taeho moved to stand beside Yunji. "What happens now?" he asked. Yunji looked at the stars beginning to appear in the evening sky. "Now we wait," she said. "And we prepare. The Union will not agree easily. There will be those who want to destroy this place and bury the truth forever. But there will also be those who want to remember. When they are ready to listen, we will be here to tell them everything." She turned to face the colonists. 200 people who had thought they were alone in the universe. 200 people who now knew they were part of something much bigger. "You found us," Yunji said. "After all these years, you found your way home. That is the beginning. But it is only the beginning. The real work is just starting." Taeho nodded. He understood. They had discovered the past. Now they had to build the future, and whatever came next, they would face it together. Taeho counted the steps. 100, 200, 300. The blue lights guided them deeper and deeper into the earth. The air grew warmer as they descended. Not hot, just warm, like the inside of a living thing. The walls changed as they went down. At first, they were plain metal. Then they showed pictures. Carvings of stars and planets and ships flying between them. Carvings of people building cities and growing gardens and reaching toward the sky. Dongwu stopped at every picture. He touched them with trembling fingers. "These are star maps," he said. "Real star maps. I can see systems I recognize. But some of these stars, some of these are in places we have never explored." They kept going. At the bottom of the stairs, they found a room. It was large, very large. The ceiling was so high that their lights could not reach it. The floor was smooth and clean, as if someone had swept it that morning. In the center of the room stood a machine. It was unlike anything Taiho had ever seen. It looked like a flower made of metal and light. Petals of silver curved around a central core that pulsed with soft blue energy. Around the machine, in a perfect circle, were hundreds of small pods. They looked like beds made of glass and metal. Most of the pods were empty. Their covers were open. Their insides were dark. But one pod, directly in front of the machine, was closed. Through the glass cover, they could see a face. A woman, young, sleeping. Yuna approached the pod slowly. She looked at the readings on the side. Her face went white. "She is alive," Yuna said. "Her heart is beating. Her brain is active. She's just sleeping. She's been sleeping for..." She checked the numbers again. 2,000 years. Taiho stood beside her. He looked at the sleeping woman. She had long black hair spread around her head like a dark halo. Her face was peaceful. She looked like she was having a good dream. "Who is she?" Taiho asked. "I do not know," Yuna said. "But whoever she is, this machine has kept her alive for 2,000 years. The technology here, it is far beyond anything we have. Far beyond anything the Galactic Union has." Dongwu was walking around the room, studying everything. He found a panel on the wall. When he touched it, the room came to life. Screens appeared in the air. Not solid screens, but light that formed pictures and words. The words were in the same old language as the door, but slowly they began to change. They shifted and reformed until they were in modern Korean. "It is adapting," Dongwu said. "The system is learning our language." The screen showed pictures. They showed the history of this place. And what they showed changed everything Taiho thought he knew about his people. The pictures showed Earth, but not the Earth that Taiho had learned about in school. This was Earth before cities, before farming, before recorded history. And even then, humans were already sailing between the stars. The screen showed ships larger than any that existed today. It showed stations orbiting distant suns. It showed people living on 1,000 different worlds. A civilization that spanned the galaxy. Then it showed how that civilization fell. War, disease, disasters that made planets burn. The pictures were terrible. Cities falling, ships crashing, billions of people dying. And then nothing. Silence, empty worlds and dark skies. "They were our ancestors," Dongwu said. His voice was small. "Humans lived among the stars 40,000 years ago. They built all of this. And then they lost everything. But that was not the end of the story." The screen showed other pictures. Pictures of new life being created. Not natural life. Made life. The ancient humans had created new species. They took their own DNA and changed it. They made beings that could live on different worlds in different conditions. They spread these beings across the galaxy like seeds. "The other species," Taiho said. He was beginning to understand. The Vethani, the Morkai, the Delan. The Delan, all the races in the Galactic Union that treat humans like children. They were created by us, by ancient humans. "Yes," Dongwu said. "They are our children. But they forgot. We all forgot." Jisoo was standing by the sleeping woman's pod. She had not spoken since they entered the room. Now she looked up with tears in her eyes. "I can hear her," she said. "In my head. She is dreaming, and I can hear her dreams. She is waiting for us to wake her." Taiho walked to the pod. He looked at the controls. There was a single button. It was glowing softly. "Should we?" he asked. Yuna shook her head. "We do not know what will happen. She has been asleep for 2,000 years. We do not know who she is or what she wants. It could be dangerous, or it could give us answers, Dongwu said. Everything we have seen here raises more questions than it answers. This woman was placed in this pod by people who knew the truth. If we want to understand, we need to hear what she has to say. They argued about it. Yuna said they should wait. She said they should study the machine more. She said they should be careful. But Taiho kept looking at the sleeping woman's face. He felt something when he looked at her. A connection. Like looking at an old photograph and recognizing someone you have never met. The ship brought us here, he said finally. The door opened for us. The lights showed us the way. Everything has been leading to this moment. I do not think we were meant to wait. He reached out and pressed the button. The pod made a soft sound. The cover began to lift. Air hissed out, ancient air from 2,000 years ago. The sleeping woman's eyes moved behind her closed lids. Her fingers twitched. Her chest rose as she took her first real breath in 2 millennia. Then she opened her eyes. Her eyes were dark brown, almost black. They looked at the ceiling for a moment, then they moved to Taiho's face. She studied him. She looked at his clothes, his hands, his eyes. Then she looked at the others. When she spoke, her voice was rough from long sleep. But her words were clear. How long have we been forgotten? She asked. She spoke in perfect modern Korean. Taiho did not know what to say. How do you tell someone that everything they knew is gone? That their civilization fell? That their children forgot who they were? A long time, he said. A very long time. The woman sat up slowly. Her body was weak, but her eyes were sharp. She looked around the room at the empty pods. Something in her face changed. Sadness. Deep, old sadness. The others, she said. They did not make it. There were others sleeping here? Yuna asked. 200 guardians. We were supposed to wake in shifts. To watch. To wait. But something went wrong. One by one, the pods failed. I am the last. She looked at Taiho. My name is Yunji, she said. I was placed here 2,000 years ago to wait for the children to come home. And you have come. After all this time, you have finally come home. Taiho felt his heart beating hard. We did not know, he said. We did not know any of this. We thought we were alone. We thought we were young in the galaxy. We did not know we had a history. Yunji smiled. It was a sad smile, but also a warm one. That was the worst part of the fall, she said. Not the death. Not the destruction. The forgetting. We lost our history. We lost our story. We became strangers to ourselves. She tried to stand. Her legs were weak. Taiho caught her arm and helped her stay upright. There is much to tell, Yunji said. Much to remember. But first, I must know. The other children. The ones we made. The ones we sent to the stars. Do they still live? Yes, Dongwu said. There are many species in the galaxy. They have formed a union. A government. They have been watching humans for centuries. They think we are the youngest race. They think we are newcomers. Yunji closed her eyes. A single tear ran down her cheek. They are our children, she said. And they forgot their parents. But now you are here. Now we can begin to remember. Now we can bring the family back together. She opened her eyes and looked at each of them in turn. Her gaze was strong, full of purpose. Will you help me? She asked. Will you help me remind them who they are? Taiho looked at Yuna. He looked at Jisoo. He looked at Dongwu. They all nodded. Yes, Taiho said. We will help you. Yunji smiled again. This time it was not sad. This time it was full of hope. Then let us begin, she said. We have a lot of work to do. It had taken 6 months to prepare. 6 months of working with Yunji. 6 months of learning the old technology. 6 months of gathering the full history of humanity from the seed ship's databanks. They had found everything. The rise of the first civilization. The creation of the other species. The Great Fall. The long forgetting. 40,000 years of history, preserved in perfect detail. Now it was time to share it with the galaxy. The transmission array was ancient, but Yuna had made it work again. It was powerful enough to reach every world in the Galactic Union, every ship, every station. Every being with a receiver would hear the message. But not everyone wanted that to happen. 1 month before the broadcast, Union ships returned to Haran 7. This time, there were not 3 ships. There were 30. They carried soldiers and weapons and orders to destroy the seed ship. The Vethany Council had split. Half of them believed Torvak's report. They wanted to learn more, but the other half was afraid. They did not want to lose their place in the galaxy. They did not want to accept that they came from humans. So they sent an army. Jizu had prepared for this. She had spent months training the colonists. She had studied the seed ship's defense systems. She had made plans for every possible attack. When the Union ships appeared in the sky, she was ready. They are landing in the desert, Jisu reported. 200 soldiers. Heavy weapons. They will be here in 1 hour. Yunji stood in the center of the underground chamber, her hand on the control panel. The seed ship was more than a hiding place. It was a weapon. It had systems that could destroy fleets. But she did not want to use them. There has been enough death, she said. The old ones destroyed themselves with weapons like these. I will not repeat their mistakes. Then what do we do? Taiho asked. We use a different weapon, Anji said. We use the truth. She activated the broadcast array. The transmission would reach the Union fleet first. Every soldier marching toward the colony would hear it. Then it would spread to every world in the galaxy. They may still attack, Jisu warned. Then we will defend ourselves, Unji said. But only to protect, never to destroy. The broadcast began. Yunji's face appeared on every screen in the galaxy. Her voice reached every ear. She spoke calmly and clearly, telling the story of humanity's first civilization. She showed the evidence. She showed the DNA comparisons. She showed the star maps and the records and the technology. You are not strangers, she said. You are family. All of you. Created by humans 40,000 years ago. Sent to the stars to grow and learn and live. You forgot your origin. But your origin did not forget you. We have been waiting. We have been hoping. And now it is time to come home. The soldiers in the desert stopped walking. Taiho watched on the screens as they stood still, looking at their communication devices. Some of them were Vethany. Some were Morkai. Some were Delan. Different species who had been taught to see each other as rivals. Now they were learning that they were brothers. Some of them sat down. Some of them cried. Some of them took off their helmets and looked at each other with new eyes. But not all of them stopped. A group of soldiers kept marching. Their leader was a Vethany commander who refused to believe. He ordered his troops forward. They were getting closer to the colony. Juzu grabbed her weapon. We need to stop them. Wait, Dongwu said. He was watching the screens closely. Look, on the screen, other soldiers were blocking the path of the ones still marching. They were talking to each other, arguing. Then, one by one, the marching soldiers put down their weapons. All except the commander. He ran toward the colony alone, a weapon in his hand. His eyes were wild with anger and fear. He could not accept the truth. He would rather destroy it than believe it. He did not get far. The seed ship's defenses activated. A soft blue light surrounded him. He could not move. The weapon fell from his hand. He hung in the air, frozen, unable to do anything. Yoonji walked out of the underground entrance. She approached the commander slowly. The other soldiers watched. The whole colony watched. The whole galaxy watched through the broadcast still running. "I understand your fear," Yoonji said to the commander. "Change is frightening. The truth can be painful, but the truth is also the only path to healing. Your ancestors made you. They loved you. They wanted you to have a good life among the stars. They did not want you to forget. The forgetting was an accident, a tragedy, but tragedies can be overcome." She touched the blue light, and the commander slowly lowered to the ground. He could move again, but he did not run. He did not attack. He just stood there, tears running down his gray face. "What am I supposed to do?" he asked. His voice was broken. "What are any of us supposed to do?" Yoonji put her hand on his shoulder. "Remember," she said. "That is all. Just remember. The rest will come in time." The commander fell to his knees. Around him, soldiers from every species came closer. They gathered around him. They gathered around Yoonji. They gathered around the colonists who had emerged from their homes. Different beings, different shapes, different colors, but all of them looking at each other as if for the first time. The broadcast ended, but its effects were just beginning. In the months that followed, everything changed. The Galactic Union was reorganized. The old hierarchies fell. New councils were formed where all species had equal voices. Not everyone accepted the change easily. There were arguments and conflicts and difficult conversations. But the truth could not be ignored. Scientists studied the seed ship. They found coordinates to other seed ships hidden across the galaxy. Expeditions were sent out. More technology was recovered. More history was found. And humanity's place in the galaxy changed forever. They were not newcomers. They were not primitives. They were the origin, the parent species, the ones who had started everything. But Taiho knew that was not the most important lesson. He stood on the ridge near the old Cheonggrail, looking at the sky. The ship was still there, its tail pointing up like a monument. People had built a garden around it. Children played in its shadow. Yuna came to stand beside him. She took his hand. In the months since the discovery, they had grown close. They had been through so much together. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "The ship," Taiho said. "It was dying. Its engines were dead. Its AI was silent. But it still found a way to bring us here. It still pointed us in the right direction." "The old technology is amazing," Yuna said. Taiho shook his head. "It is not just the technology. The ship was made by people who wanted their children to find their way home. Even after 40,000 years. Even after everyone forgot. They built the ship to remember when people could not." He looked down at the ground where he had started digging so many months ago. A lifetime ago. A different world ago. "We thought we were digging for treasure," he said. "Or danger. Or answers. But we were really digging for ourselves. For who we really are." Yoonji joined them on the ridge. She looked stronger now. Happier. The sadness that had lived in her eyes was fading. "The first ships are ready," she said. "They will leave tomorrow to find the other seed ships. And after that, we will begin building again. Not the same civilization as before. Something new. Something better. How do we make sure we do not make the same mistakes?" Taiho asked. Yoonji smiled. "We remember. That is the whole secret. We remember our history. We remember our failures. We remember that we are all family, no matter what we look like or where we live. As long as we remember, we have a chance. The sun was setting over Haran 7. The sky turned red and gold and purple. Somewhere in the galaxy, beings of every species were reading the history that had been shared with them. They were learning about their origin. They were reaching out to each other for the first time as true brothers and sisters. Taiho thought about the old ship that had pointed to the ground. He thought about the door that had opened for him. He thought about the woman who had slept for 2,000 years, waiting for someone to wake her. He thought about his shovel hitting metal. He thought about everything that had happened since. "We found our way back," he said. Yunji nodded. "You did. After all this time. After all the forgetting. You found your way back." Yuna squeezed his hand. "What do we do now?" Taiho looked at the stars appearing in the evening sky. Not distant points of light anymore. Not mysteries or challenges or threats. Family. Destinations. Home. "Now we go find the rest of our family," he said. "And we bring them home, too." The old ship stood behind them. The seed ship waited below. The galaxy turned above. And humanity, at last, remembered who it was. Not the youngest species in the galaxy. Not newcomers or primitives or accidents of evolution. The parents. The builders. The ones who had planted seeds across the stars and waited for them to grow. 40,000 years of forgetting had ended on a colony world no one remembered, because a mechanic had refused to ignore a glitch in an old navigation system. He had started digging, and he had unearthed the impossible. The truth.